The security footage would later show 16-year-old Amara Westbrook taking 37 seconds to bleed out on the concrete. But what the cameras couldn't capture was that her mother, Jade Westbrook, would need only 37 days to dismantle the entire Cedar Heights Police Department. When Officer Brock Savage's baton connected with Amara's skull that October evening, he had no idea he'd just declared war on a woman who'd spent 12 years running covert operations for the NSAA, mother who knew exactly how to make powerful men disappear. But before I tell you how one mother's fury brought an entire corrupt system to its knees, I want to take just a moment to speak directly to you, because if you're watching this, you understand that these aren't just stories, they're lifelines for families trapped in systems designed to silence them. Every view, every share, every comment helps these voices reach someone who needs to hear them. And if this story moves you, if it makes you feel less alone or more empowered, consider hitting that thanks button below. Your support, whether it's a like, a comment, or a contribution, helps us dig deeper into these cases, bring more hidden truths to light, and most importantly, remind families facing injustice that they're not fighting alone. We pour our hearts into researching and sharing these stories because we believe truth still matters. Justice is still possible. And sometimes, one story can spark the change we all need to see. Thank you for being here, for witnessing, for caring. Now, let me take you into the night that changed everything. The autumn air hung thick with tension outside Cedar Heights Community Center at 7:45 p.m. When Amara Westbrook adjusted her violin case and stepped into the parking lot. She'd just finished tutoring middle schoolers in music theory volunteer work that would look stellar on her Stanford application. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the empty lot. Amara pulled out her phone to text her mother. "Heading home now? See you in 20. The response came instantly. "Drive safe. Baby, proud of you." Amara smiled, tucking a strand of her meticulously maintained braids behind her ear. At 16, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd learned early that excellence was her best defense against a world that would always see her skin before her achievements. Honor roll student, first chair violin in the State Youth Orchestra. Accepted into 3 pre-college summer programs, Amara Westbrook was going places. She never made it to her car. "Hold up right there." The voice cracked through the darkness like a whip. Amara froze. Her hand inches from her beat-up Honda Civic's door handle. 2 officers emerged from behind a patrol car she hadn't noticed parked in the shadows. Officer Brock Savage, 6'3", with shoulders that strained against his uniform, moved with the calculated aggression of a predator who'd cornered prey. His partner, Officer Tyler Nash, younger and visibly nervous, hung back with his hand resting on his service weapon. "Can I help you, officers?" Amara's voice remained steady, though her pulse quickened. She'd had the talk with her mother countless times, hands visible, voice calm. "No sudden movements." "Funny thing," Savage said, his thin lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. "We got a call about suspicious activity. Young woman matching your description. Casing cars in this lot." Amara's stomach dropped. "I volunteer here. I teach music to kids. I can show you my—" "I didn't ask for your life story." Savage stepped closer, close enough that Amara could smell the stale coffee on his breath. "Hands on the vehicle? Now, officer, I haven't done anything wrong. This is my car. My registration is—" "Are you refusing to comply?" Savage's voice dropped to a growl. Nash shifted uncomfortably, finally speaking up. "Brock, maybe we should—" "Shut up, rookie." Savage never took his eyes off Amara. "I said hands on the vehicle." Amara's hands trembled as she slowly turned, placing her palms flat against the cold metal of her car. Her violin case clattered to the ground. Through the reflection in her window, she could see Savage reaching for something on his belt. Not his gun, something else. "Please," she whispered. "I'm just trying to go home." The first blow came without warning. Savage's baton caught her behind the left knee, sending her crashing to the asphalt. Amara cried out, instinctively trying to protect herself as she fell. The second strike landed across her shoulders, driving the air from her lungs. "Stop resisting," Savage barked. Though Amara wasn't resisting at all, she was simply trying to breathe, to understand why this was happening. "Brock, Jesus Christ!" Nash stepped forward. "She's just a kid." I said, "Shut up." Savage raised the baton again. The third blow changed everything. The baton connected with the side of Amara's head with a sickening crack that echoed across the empty parking lot. Her body went limp instantly, blood beginning to pool beneath her face. For a moment, both officers stood frozen, the reality of what had just happened settling over them like a shroud. "Oh shit," Nash breathed. "Oh shit. Brock, what did you do?" Savage's face had gone pale, but his expression quickly hardened. "She was resisting. You saw her resist, right?" "She wasn't," I said. "You saw her resist." Savage grabbed Nash by the collar. "Unless you want to explain to your pregnant wife why you're suddenly unemployed. Or worse." Nash swallowed hard, looking down at Amara's motionless form. A dark stain was spreading across the concrete. "We need to call an ambulance." "We will. But first, we get our story straight." Savage pulled out his phone. Not to call for help, but to make a different call. "Captain Harlow." "Yeah. We got a situation." "That thing we discussed." "Yeah. It happened 3 blocks away." Jade Westbrook was settling in with a glass of wine and a stack of legal briefs when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something, call it mother's intuition, made her answer. "Miss Westbrook, this is Cedar Heights Medical. Your daughter was brought in." The wine glass shattered on the hardwood floor. Jade didn't remember the drive to the hospital. One moment she was standing in her living room, shards of glass at her feet. The next, she was pushing through the emergency room doors, her designer heels clicking against linoleum with machine gun precision. "Amara Westbrook," she said to the first nurse she saw. "Where is my daughter?" The nurse's expression told her everything she needed to know. "Please, come with me." They led her to a small consultation room, never a good sign. A doctor entered moments later, his face grave. "Miss Westbrook, I'm Dr. Morrison. Your daughter suffered severe head trauma. We've placed her in a medically induced coma to reduce brain swelling." The world tilted. Jade gripped the edge of the table. "Head trauma? What happened?" "The officers who brought her in said she fell during an arrest." "Arrest?" Jade's voice could have cut glass. "For what?" "Dr. Morrison shifted uncomfortably. "They didn't specify." "Miss Westbrook, the next 24 to 48 hours are critical. The damage is extensive. I want to see her." "Of course, but I should prepare you." Now, nothing could have prepared her. Amara lay surrounded by machines, her beautiful face swollen beyond recognition. Tubes ran down her throat. Monitors beeped in a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Jade approached slowly, her entire body trembling. "Oh, baby," she whispered, gently touching Amara's hand. "What did they do to you?" A uniformed officer stood guard outside the room. Through the window, Jade could see him shifting nervously. She stepped out, fixing him with a stare that had once made foreign operatives confess state secrets. "You're going to tell me exactly what happened to my daughter." The young officer, his badge, Red Martinez, looked like he might vomit. "Ma'am, I wasn't there. I'm just assigned to." "Then get me someone who was." "I can't." "Officer Martinez." Jade stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I spent 12 years with the NSA. I know 17 different ways to end a man's career without lifting a finger. Would you like to discover number 18? Martinez pallid. "Officer Nash." "Tyler Nash. He was there. But he's not." "He didn't." "Where is he?" "Home. On administrative leave pending the investigation." Jade memorized the name. "And the other officer?" Martinez's silence spoke volumes. That night, Jade sat beside her daughter's bed, holding her limp hand and making a series of phone calls, not to lawyers, not yet. These calls were to people whose names never appeared in phone books, whose job titles were classified, whose very existence was need to know. "Phoenix," she said when one finally answered. "It's Ghost. I'm calling in that favor." "Jesus." "Jade, I thought you were out." "So did I. I need everything you can get on the Cedar Heights Police Department. Focus on Officers Brock Savage and Tyler Nash. This is about what happened to Amara. I saw the news report. The news is lying. Jade's grip on the phone tightened. They beat my baby into a coma, and now they're covering it up. I want dirt. Phoenix. I want enough to bury them all. Give me 6 hours. Jade ended the call and looked back at her daughter. In the dim hospital light, she could see the cheerleader Amara had been at 8, the science fair winner at 12, the young woman who'd played violin at Carnegie Hall just 3 months ago, all of that potential, all of that light, dimmed by men who saw her as nothing more than a threat to be neutralized. I promise you, baby, Jade whispered, they're going to pay. The next morning brought the first wave of lies. The Cedar Heights Gazette ran a small story on page 6. Local teen hospitalized after resisting arrest. The article, clearly fed by police sources, painted Amara as aggressive, non-compliant, possibly under the influence. It mentioned her fall only in passing. Jade read it in the hospital cafeteria, her coffee growing cold as rage built in her chest. Her phone buzzed. Phoenix, you sitting down? He asked without preamble. Talk. Brock Savage has 18 excessive force complaints, all buried. Tyler Nash is clean, but word is he's been trying to transfer out time. And here's the kicker. There's body cam footage. Jade's heart stopped. They said the cameras malfunctioned. They did. Conveniently. But a security camera from the community center caught part of it. Not great quality. But enough? Jade. It's bad. Send it. Are you sure? Maybe you should. Send it. The video arrived 90 seconds later. Jade watched it once. Then again. By the third viewing, her hands had stopped shaking. The transformation was complete. The grieving mother was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous, a woman with the skills, connections, and motivation to destroy everyone who'd touched her child. She made another call. This one to a number she'd sworn she'd never dial again. Director Coleman's office. Tell him Ghost needs an off-the-books favor. He'll know what that means. While she waited, Jade pulled up Cedar Heights Police Department's website on her tablet. She studied the command structure, memorized faces, traced connections. Captain Vincent Harlow's name appeared again and again in Phoenix's preliminary report. Savage's protector. The one who'd made those 18 complaints disappear. Her phone rang. Jade? Christ? I haven't heard that code name in. My daughter's in a coma. Marcus. Cedar Heights cops put her there. I need a full workup on their department. Financial records. Internal communications. The works. Director Marcus Coleman was quiet for a long moment. You know I can't officially. I'm not asking for official. What are you planning? What I was trained to do. Dismantle an enemy organization from the inside out. Jade. This isn't Kandahar. You can't just. Watch me. She hung up before he could protest further. Outside Amara's window, the sun was setting over Cedar Heights, painting the sky, the color of dried blood. Somewhere in this city, Brock Savage was probably sitting down to dinner, confident that his blue wall of silence would protect him. He had no idea what was coming. That evening, Tyler Nash answered his door to find a woman in a designer suit, standing on his porch. She was beautiful in a way that suggested danger, like a perfectly crafted blade. Officer Nash, my name is Jade Westbrook. I believe you know my daughter. Nash's face went white. He tried to close the door, but Jade's foot was already blocking it. We need to talk, she said pleasantly, about what really happened in that parking lot. I can't. Your wife is 7 months pregnant? It wasn't a question. Twins, according to her Facebook page. Congratulations. It would be a shame if those children grew up without a father, because he chose to protect a violent criminal instead of doing the right thing. Nash's shoulders slumped. If I talk, I'm dead. You don't understand how deep this goes. Try me. He looked around nervously, then stepped aside. Not here. Too many eyes. There's a diner on Route 12. Rosie's. 1 hour. Jade nodded and turned to leave. Then paused. Officer Nash, if you're not there, if this is some kind of setup, I promise you'll wish Savage had killed you instead of my daughter. Nash believed her. Rosie's Diner was the kind of place that had seen better decades: cracked vinyl booths, flickering neon, coffee that could strip paint. Jade arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a corner booth with clear sight lines to both exits. Old habits. Nash showed up exactly on time, sliding into the opposite seat like a man approaching his execution. Up close, Jade could see he hadn't been sleeping. "Good. Before we start," she said, placing a small device on the table, "this conversation is being recorded. For both our protection." Nash eyed the device warily. "That's not legal?" Neither was beating a 16-year-old girl into a coma. Jade's voice could have frozen hell. "Start talking." Nash ordered coffee he wouldn't drink and began. "Savage has been hunting for months. That's what he calls ithunting. Looking for excuses to hurt people, especially black kids. Says it's about maintaining order. But he gets off on it. And Captain Harlow? Covers for him. Always has. They've got some kind of deal. Savage does Harlow's dirty work. Harlow makes the complaints go away." "What kind of dirty work?" Nash's hands shook as he reached for his coffee. "There's a list. Names of people Harlow wants pushed out of certain neighborhoods. Community organizers. Activists. Anybody who might cause trouble for his real estate buddies." Jade leaned forward. "Are you telling me the Cedar Heights Police Department is running a protection racket?" "I'm telling you it goes all the way to City Hall." Nash met her eyes for the first time. "Your daughter wasn't random. She was targeted." The words hit Jade like a physical blow. "What?" 2 weeks ago, Amara wrote an article for her school paper about police presence in minority neighborhoods. Someone showed it to Harlow. He put her on the list. Jade's vision went red at the edges. She forced herself to breathe, to think tactically. "I need proof." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Because if you don't, I'll destroy you along with the rest of them. But if you help me, if you do the right thing, I'll make sure you're protected. New identity if necessary. Witness protection. I have connections you can't imagine." Nash was crying now, silent tears rolling down his cheeks. She was just lying there, blood everywhere. And Savage was worried about the story we'd tell. Not about calling an ambulance. Not about saving her. Just the story. The body camera footage. Destroyed. "But," Nash pulled out his phone with trembling hands, "I recorded Savage on my personal phone afterward. Him coaching me on what to say. I don't know why. Insurance. Maybe. Play it." The audio was damning. Savage's voice. Calm and instructional. "She reached for your weapon. That's what you saw. She was aggressive. Possibly on drugs. We had no choice. Say it back to me." "Rookie." Jade copied the file to 3 different cloud servers before Nash could change his mind. "What else?" "There's a warehouse. On Pier 47, that's where they keep the real files. The ones they don't want in the system. Harlow's got dirt on half the city council in there. Security? Basic. They don't think anyone knows about it." Jade smiled for the first time since arriving at the hospital. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Officer Nash, you just saved your life. Go home. Pack a bag. Take your wife somewhere safe for a few days." "What are you going to do?" "What I do best. Wage war." Nash left first, shoulders hunched against the weight of his betrayal. Jade waited exactly 5 minutes, then made a call. "Phoenix, I need a team. Off books. The kind who won't ask questions." "How dirty are we talking?" "Patriot Act dirty." "Jesus. Give me 2 hours." Jade drove back to the hospital, where Amara lay unchanged. The machines breathed for her daughter, each mechanical breath a reminder of what had been stolen. A nurse different from the morning shift gave her a sympathetic smile. "Any change?" Jade asked. Though she knew the answer. "She's stable." "That's good. These things take time." Time. The one thing Jade didn't have. Every hour that passed allowed Harlow and Savage to strengthen their cover-up, to align their stories, to disappear evidence. But Jade had learned patience in places where impatience meant death. She could wait a little longer. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus Coleman. I shouldn't be calling you," he began. "But you are. Harlow's connected. DEA has him flagged but won't move. Too many operations would be compromised." "I don't care about their operations. I know. That's what worries me." "Jade." If you go after him. I'm not going after him. Marcus, I'm going to systematically dismantle his entire network, expose every dirty cop in his department, and burn his organization to the ground. Then, and only then, will I go after him? The agency can't protect you if you— I'm not asking for protection. I'm giving you a heads up. In 48 hours, Cedar Heights is going to be national news. You might want to distance yourself, or I could help. Jade paused. What? Unofficial channels only? But if evidence were to mysteriously appear in certain federal databases, if certain investigations were to suddenly receive anonymous tips— Why? Because I have a daughter too. And because Ghost saved my life in Tehran, I owe you. Then start with Savage's finances. I want to know every dirty dollar he's ever touched. Done. And Jade? Give them hell. The warehouse on Pier 47 squatted against the harbor like a cancer. At 2:15 a.m., the only sounds were distant foghorns and the lap of oily water against rotting pillars. Jade crouched on a neighboring rooftop, studying the building through night vision goggles. Phoenix had come through. 2 men flanked her contractors who specialized in the kind of work that didn't officially exist. They called themselves Tom and Jerry, which would have been funny if Jade had any humor left in her body. 2 guards? Tom whispered, rotating every 2 hours. Cameras on the northeast and southwest corners. Infrared? Negative. Budget operation? Entry? Service door on the east side. Basic lock. No alarm that I can see. Jade smiled coldly. Then let's go shopping. They moved like shadows. 3 ghosts slipping through the night. The guards never saw them coming. Tom's tranquilizer dart dropped the first. Jerry's chokehold took the second. Clean. Quiet. Professional. In another life, Jade had done this in Baghdad, Kabul, a dozen cities whose names were still classified. The skills never left you. The lock yielded to her picks in under 30 seconds. Inside, the warehouse was a shrine to corruption. File cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with codes that meant nothing to outsiders, but painted a clear picture to Jade's trained eye. She photographed everything, uploaded it all to secure servers, then got to work on the real prize, Harlow's personal files. Jackpot, Jerry breathed, holding up a folder, financial records going back 15 years. Copy everything. We have. The lights blazed on. Well, Captain Vincent Harlow stood in the doorway, flanked by 4 officers with weapons drawn. Miss Westbrook, I was wondering when you'd show up. Jade straightened slowly, hands visible but not raised. Never show weakness. Captain Harlow. Working late? I had a feeling someone might come sniffing around. Didn't expect it to be you personally. Thought you'd send lawyers. Lawyers come later, after I've destroyed everything you've built. Harlow laughed. A sound like grinding glass. You have no idea who you're fucking with. I own this city. Judges, prosecutors, city council, they all answer to me. Not anymore. No. You think anyone's going to believe the word of a grieving mother who broke into private property? You're looking at 20 years? Minimum. Your daughter will wake up if she wakes up to find mommy in federal prison. Jade smiled. It was the smile that had made hardened terrorists wet themselves. Did you really think I'd come here without insurance? Harlow's confidence flickered. You're bluffing. Tom? Tom held up his phone. Live streaming to 17 different platforms. Has been for the last 10 minutes. Smile. Captain, you're trending. The color drained from Harlow's face as he realized the trap. Every word he'd said, every admission, broadcast live to thousands of viewers. His own hubris had damned him. You bitch, he snarled. No, Jade corrected. I'm a mother, and you tried to kill my child. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Not Harlow's men. Jade had made sure federal agents would be monitoring those streams. The captain's hand twitched toward his weapon. Don't, Jade warned. You're done. Harlow, the only question is whether you go down for corruption or murder. This isn't over. Yes, it is. In about 3 minutes, federal agents are going to walk through that door. You can either be in custody or on the ground. Your choice. Harlow's face contorted with rage. But he was trapped, and he knew it. The sirens were right outside now. Car doors slammed. Voices shouted commands. "Drop your weapons, federal agents." The next few moments were chaos. Harlow's men, realizing the game was up, complied immediately. Harlow himself stood frozen, watching his empire crumble in real time. The live stream comments scrolled past too fast to read, but Jade caught fragments. "Corrupt cops exposed! Justice for Amara! Share this everywhere!" As federal agents flooded the warehouse, Jade felt her phone vibrate. The hospital. "Miss Westbrook, you need to come quickly. There's been a change in your daughter's condition." Jade's hands shook as she pushed through the hospital doors at 3:27 a.m. Still wearing the tactical gear from the warehouse raid, federal agents had wanted to debrief her, but the moment she'd mentioned her daughter, they'd waved her through. The elevator ride to the ICU felt like crossing continents. "Doctor." Morrison met her at the nurse's station, his expression unreadable. "Miss Westbrook, your daughter's brain activity has increased significantly in the last hour. She's fighting to wake up. Is that good?" Jade's voice cracked for the first time since this nightmare began. "It's unexpected. With the severity of her injuries, we didn't anticipate conscious response this soon. But Amara appears to be exceptional in more ways than one." Jade rushed to her daughter's room. Amara lay still, but the monitors told a different story. Brain waves spiking, heart rate elevated. As Jade took her hand, Amara's fingers twitched. "I'm here, baby," Jade whispered. "Mommy's here. You fight. You hear me? You fight like I taught you." Amara's eyelids fluttered. For just a moment, they opened, unfocused but undeniably conscious. A single tear rolled down her swollen cheek. "That's my girl," Jade breathed. "That's my warrior." "Doctor." Morrison checked the monitors, his excitement barely contained. "This is remarkable. Keep talking to her. Sometimes a familiar voice can." The room's television, muted, but on, caught Jade's attention. Breaking news scrolled across the bottom. Federal raid exposes massive police corruption in Cedar Heights. The warehouse footage was everywhere. Harlow's face filled the screen, hands cuffed behind his back as agents led him away. "Look, baby." Jade turned the screen toward Amara. "We got them. The men who hurt you, they're finished." Amara's eyes tracked to the screen. Her heart rate spiked. Then, impossibly, her lips moved. No sound. But Jade could read the shape. "Mom." The word shattered Jade's carefully maintained control. She sobbed, clutching her daughter's hand as months of suppressed fear and rage poured out. Her baby was going to make it, and the men who'd tried to destroy her were going to pay. By sunrise, Cedar Heights had become ground zero for a national reckoning. News vans lined every street. Protesters gathered outside the police department. The warehouse live stream had been viewed over 3 million times, shared by celebrities, politicians, and civil rights organizations. The hashtag number, Justice for Amara, was trending worldwide. Jade stood outside the hospital, having finally changed into civilian clothes, fielding her 15th call of the morning. This one was from the Attorney General himself. "Miss Westbrook, I want to personally assure you that the Department of Justice is launching a full investigation into the Cedar Heights Police Department with respect. Seer, I don't want assurances. I want arrests. I want trials. I want every officer who participated in or covered up brutality behind bars. You have my word. I don't want your word either. I want action. By noon today, or I release the rest of what I found in that warehouse." There was a pause. "The rest?" Jade smiled grimly. "You didn't think I showed all my cards last night, did you? I have financial records linking your office to—" "That's enough. Noon. You'll have your arrests." She ended the call and turned to find Phoenix waiting with coffee and a tablet. "Thought you might want to see this," he said, handing her both. The tablet showed a live feed from the police department. Officers were being led out in handcuffs, not just Harlow's inner circle, but dozens of cops who'd participated in the systematic abuse. Savage was among them, his face a mask of disbelief as protesters screamed, "Murderer!" And child abuser. How many? Jade asked. 43 so far. More coming. The FBI found your breadcrumbs in their system. Every dirty cop you tagged is getting picked up. It's not enough. Phoenix raised an eyebrow. You just took down an entire corrupt department in less than 48 hours. What more do you want? Change. Real change. This can't just be about Cedar Heights. Jade pulled out her phone. Get me a press conference. 1 hour. Jade, you should rest. I'll rest when my daughter can walk out of this hospital. Until then, they work. The press conference drew hundreds. Jade stood behind a forest of microphones. Looking every inch, the warrior she'd once been polished exterior, steel core. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who'd seen too much to ever be intimidated again. My name is Jade Westbrook. 2 days ago, my 16-year-old daughter was beaten into a coma by police officers sworn to protect and serve. Today, those officers are in custody. But this isn't about vengeance. This is about the system that created them, protected them, and enabled them to terrorize our communities with impunity. She held up a flash drive. This contains evidence of corruption spanning 15 years. Not just police brutality, but financial crimes, evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and murder. Yes, murder. 3 unsolved deaths in Cedar Heights can now be traced directly to Captain Harlow's operation. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jade continued, her voice never wavering. But Cedar Heights is not unique. This disease has infected police departments across our nation. Today, I'm announcing the formation of the Amara Foundation, a national organization dedicated to investigating and exposing police corruption. We will provide resources for victims, support for whistleblowers, and most importantly, we will never stop watching. A reporter shouted, Miss Westbrook, what about Officer Nash? He was there that night. Officer Tyler Nash made a choice, Jade said carefully. He chose wrong initially, but he also chose to come forward. He's cooperating fully with federal investigators. Without his testimony, much of this evidence would have remained buried. I don't forgive him for not stopping the attack on my daughter, but I acknowledge his courage in speaking truth to power when it mattered. What about Brock Savage? Jade's expression hardened. Brock Savage is a predator with a badge. The evidence shows he's responsible for hospitalizing at least 7 teenagers over the past 3 years. He will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And when he's convicted, not if. When I'll be there to watch him sentenced. Another reporter. There are rumors you have a background in intelligence. Can you comment? I served my country in capacities I'm not at liberty to discuss. But I will say this. The skills I learned protecting America from foreign threats work just as well protecting Americans from domestic ones. Do you have a message for other police departments? Jade looked directly into the cameras. Yes. We're watching. Every brutality complaint, every covered-up assault, every suspicious death, we will find it. The blue wall of silence has cracks now, and those cracks will become canyons. To the good officers out there, and I know you exist, it's time to choose a side, stand with your communities, or fall with the corrupt. There is no middle ground anymore. She walked away without taking more questions, leaving the media to dissect her declaration of war. Back at the hospital, Amara had been moved out of the ICU. She was awake, truly awake. Though her speech came slowly and with effort, Jade sat beside her, showing her videos of the protests, the arrests, the nationwide response to her story. You did this? Jade told her daughter. Your strength? Your refusal to be silenced. You started a revolution. Baby. Amara's voice was barely a whisper. The article. They came because of my article? Jade's throat tightened. Yes. Nash confirmed it. You wrote truth. And they tried to silence you for it. Am I going to be okay? The doctors say you'll make a full recovery. Physical therapy. Some challenges ahead. But you're going to be fine. Amara was quiet for a moment. Then, I want to keep writing. Of course you do. Jade smiled through tears. That's my fighter. No, Amara said with surprising firmness. I want to write about this. All of it. A book maybe. So people know what really happened. Then we'll make that happen. Whatever you need. A knock at the door interrupted them. Tyler Nash stood in the doorway, looking like he'd aged a decade in 2 days. His wife, heavily pregnant, stood beside him. "I'm sorry," he said, not entering. "I know that's not enough. Will never be enough. But I needed you to hear it. I failed your daughter. I failed my oath. I failed everything I supposedly stood for." Jade studied him for a long moment. "You're testifying tomorrow?" "Yes. Against all of them. Everything I know. Everything I've seen. My lawyer says I'm looking at 5 years. Maybe 3, with cooperation. I'll lose my pension, my career." "Good," Jade said flatly. "You watched a child get beaten nearly to death, and did nothing. Prison time and financial loss don't begin to balance that scale." Nash's wife spoke up, her voice shaking. "He wanted to stop it. He's told me he wanted to. Wanting and doing are different things." Jade cut her off. "Your husband made his choice that night. Now he lives with it." "Mom." Amara's weak voice surprised them all. Let me talk to him." Jade frowned but helped her daughter sit up slightly. Amara fixed Nash with eyes that held too much wisdom for 16 years. "I remember you," she said slowly. "You said she's just a kid?" "I heard that before everything went dark." Nash's face crumpled. "I should have done more. I should have stopped him." "Yes," Amara agreed. "You should have. But you're here now. That's something." She paused, gathering strength. "When you testify tomorrow, don't just tell them what happened to me. Tell them about the others. All the others. Their names matter too." Nash nodded, tears streaming. "Everyone. I promise." "Then go," Amara said, exhaustion creeping into her voice. "Do better. Be better. Maybe that's enough." After they left, Jade kissed her daughter's forehead. "You're more forgiving than I am." "No," Amara said softly. "I just understand something you taught me. Sometimes the best revenge is forcing someone to live with their choices. He'll carry this forever." That's justice too. The trial of Brock Savage began 6 weeks later. By then, Amara could walk with a cane. Her recovery, nothing short of miraculous. She insisted on attending every day. Sitting in the front row where Savage couldn't avoid seeing her, the prosecution's case was devastating. Video evidence, financial records, Nash's testimony, and a parade of victims who'd found courage in Amara's story. Savage's defense attorney tried to paint him as a dedicated officer making split-second decisions, but the evidence was overwhelming. On the day of Nash's testimony, the courtroom was packed. He took the stand in a cheap suit, no longer carrying himself like a cop. His voice was steady as he recounted that night, sparing no detail. "Savage enjoyed it," Nash said, meeting the jury's eyes. "When he hit her the 3rd time, when her head hit the ground, he smiled. I'll never forget that smile." "Objection!" Savage's lawyer shouted. "Overruled. Continue." "Mr. Nash, he said she had it coming, said all these kids had it coming, that they needed to learn respect, learn their place." His words, not mine. The prosecutor showed the video Jade had found, the one with Savage coaching Nash on their story. The jury watched Savage's calculated cruelty, his complete lack of concern for the child bleeding out feet away. Several jurors looked physically ill. When Savage took the stand in his own defense, it was a disaster. His arrogance, barely contained in court, spilled out under cross-examination. She was resisting, he insisted. She was walking to her car. The prosecutor countered. She had an attitude. She asked why she was being stopped. "Is that a crime, Officer Savage?" "These people always have attitudes." "These people?" Savage realized his mistake too late. "I meant suspects. 16-year-old honor students are automatically suspects. In that neighborhood, the community center is in a middle-class area with crime rates below the city average. Try again." By the time Savage left the stand, his conviction was all but certain. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. Jade and Amara sat together, hands clasped. As the foreman stood, "On the charge of assault in the 1st degree, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to obstruct justice, We find the defendant guilty on the charge of evidence tampering. We find the defendant guilty. The convictions kept coming. 12 counts. All guilty. Savage's face went from red to white to gray as his future evaporated. The judge revoked bail immediately, citing flight risk. As guards moved to cuff him, Savage's eyes found Amara. "This is your fault," he snarled. "You ruined everything." Amara stood, leaning on her cane but head high. "No. Officer Savage, you ruined everything. The moment you decided my black life didn't matter, I just made sure everyone else saw it too." The courtroom erupted in applause as Savage was dragged away. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge, an elderly black woman who'd seen too much injustice in her career, didn't mince words. "Officer Savage, you betrayed your oath, your community, and basic human decency. You used your badge as a weapon to terrorize children. You nearly killed a brilliant young woman whose only crime was excellence. While black, this court sentences you to 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole." Jade felt something inside her finally unclench. It wasn't enough nothing could give Amara back those weeks in a coma, the months of painful recovery, the innocence stolen. But it was justice. Real, tangible justice. Outside the courthouse, hundreds had gathered. As Jade and Amara emerged, the crowd erupted. Signs reading, "Amara Strong" and "Black Girls Matter" waved above a sea of faces, black, white, brown, all united in celebration of accountability, finally served. Amara stepped up to the microphones, still using her cane, but voice clear and strong. "Today, Brock Savage learned what happens when you mistake our patience for weakness. But this isn't over. There are more Savages out there. More departments like Cedar Heights. We've shown them we're watching. We've shown them we'll fight. Now we show them we'll win." The crowd roared approval. Jade watched her daughter scarred but not broken, wounded but not defeated, and felt a pride that bordered on savage. They'd tried to destroy her baby. Instead, they'd created a warrior. 6 months later, the Cedar Heights Police Department ceased to exist. In its place, a new community-based public safety department was formed, with civilian oversight, mandatory de-escalation training, and accountability measures that became a model for reform nationwide. The Amara Foundation had exposed corruption in 17 other departments, leading to hundreds of arrests and systematic changes. Amara's book, Bleeding Out, A Survivor's Story of Police Violence, topped bestseller lists for 16 weeks. She donated every penny to victims' advocacy groups. At 17, she became the youngest person ever to address the United Nations Human Rights Council, and her cane, a silent testament to the violence that had tried and failed to silence her. Tyler Nash served 2 years of a 3-year sentence, his cooperation and genuine remorse earning early release. He now worked with the Amara Foundation, training officers on intervention techniques and the cost of silence. His twins knew their father as a man who'd made a terrible mistake and spent every day trying to atone. Captain Harlow died in federal prison, stabbed by an inmate whose cousin had been one of his victims. Jade felt no satisfaction at the news. Death was too easy, an escape for men like him. And Jade herself? She ran the Amara Foundation with the same precision she'd once applied to classified operations. Her wall of photographs grew weekly, not targets for elimination, but lives saved. Corruptions exposed. Community protected. She'd found her new mission, one that required all her old skills, but served a cause closer to home. On the first anniversary of the attack, Jade and Amara returned to the community center parking lot. The spot where Amara had bled was now marked by a small memorial garden planted by neighborhood children who saw her as a hero. Mother and daughter stood together, no longer needing words to communicate their shared triumph and trauma. "You know what the best part is?" Amara finally said, her hand finding her mother's. "What's that, baby?" "They thought they were shutting me up. Instead, they gave me the biggest platform I could have asked for. Now when I write, millions read. When I speak, power listens. They created their own worst nightmare, a black girl, With a voice too loud to ignore, and a mother too dangerous to intimidate, Jade pulled her daughter close. "You were always going to change the world. Baby." They just chose the hard way to learn that as the sun set over Cedar Heights, painting the sky in shades of justice and hope, Jade Westbrook allowed herself a moment of peace. The war wasn't over, might never be truly over. But this battle, this crucial battle for her daughter's life and future, they had won. And somewhere in a federal prison cell, Brock Savage was learning what Jade had always known. You could beat a black girl down, but if her mother was anything like Jade Westbrook, you'd better make sure she never got back up. Because if she did, when she did, she'd rise with an army behind her, and heaven help anyone standing in her way. The revolution Amara had started with a simple school newspaper article had become a movement that reshaped American policing, all because one mother refused to let her daughter become another hashtag, another statistic, another name forgotten by morning. In the end, that was Jade's greatest victory, not the arrests or the convictions or the systemic changes, but the simple fact that Amara Westbrook was alive, thriving, and still writing truth to power. The cops had savaged the black woman's daughter into a coma. The black woman had crushed their entire department in response, and the daughter? She'd risen from that coma to help burn down the system that had tried to bury her. Sometimes, justice looked exactly like revenge served at the perfect temperature, cold, calculated, and absolutely devastating. Later, as they walked the Capitol steps, Jade linked arms with her daughter. "You know what you just did in there? Made enemies? Made history. Again." They stood at the bottom of the steps, looking back at the building where power lived. 2 years ago, Jade had promised to burn down the system that hurt her daughter. Now Amara was rebuilding it from the ashes. One testimony, one law, one saved life at a time. "Mom?" Amara said quietly. "Do you think Dad would be proud?" Jade's breath caught. They rarely spoke of David, who died serving overseas when Amara was 7. "Baby, your father believed in fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. You're doing that every single day. He would be so proud he'd burst." A car pulled up their security detail, because death threats were as common as sunrise now. As they climbed in, Jade's phone buzzed. Phoenix, with a simple message. "Check the news." The headline made them both smile. "House Judiciary Committee announces bipartisan support for Bleeding Out Act." "We're winning," Amara said softly. "No, baby," Jade corrected, pulling her daughter close. "We've already won. Now we're just making sure everyone else wins too." As Washington disappeared behind them, mother and daughter sat in comfortable silence. Two warriors who'd turned trauma into transformation, pain into power, and a parking lot beating into a nationwide revolution. The cops who'd savaged a black girl into a coma had created their own destruction. They just hadn't known it yet. But Jade had known. From the moment she'd seen her baby's blood on concrete, she'd known exactly how this story would end. Not with violence, but with victory. Not with revenge, but with revolution. And not with silence, but with a voice so powerful that Congress itself had to listen. The war for justice was far from over. But with women like Jade and Amara Westbrook leading the charge, the outcome was never really in doubt.